Welcome to today's topic. We're going to talk all about how to go from manager to director. And if this is your first time here, welcome. I'm Kim Reimakers, and I share all kinds of leadership topics specifically for women in leadership every single week. And I have been in this coaching space for the last 3.5 years, working with a number of, over 70 plus senior women leaders, helping them to transition and get the strategies needed to transition from being that manager into being a successful strategic leader, similar to a client who has been able to successfully, within 6 months of being in her new workplace, transition into a new head of region role. So if that is something that interests you, then you want to stick around today, because I'm going to talk specifically how you can make that transition yourself. I'm also, for those of you that are interested to go even deeper, I want you to DM me guide, because I have a 7-step guide for you, and I will just send you the PDF. All you have to do is DM me guide, and you will get that PDF. And in that, it's going to go into 7 different steps that you can take today to start really accelerating your opportunities and to get that next level promotion that you're looking for. Now, let's start today. And today I'm only going to share 3. I'm not going to share all 7, otherwise we could be here for a very long time, but I am going to share with you 3 of those steps today. I'm going to call them the triple C, because I've changed them around a little bit, but that way it makes it a little easier to remember for you. So let's start diving in, because here's a couple of things that I have seen that when it comes to that next step, when it comes to becoming that manager, going from that manager role to the director or into that senior leadership executive roles, that so often I have women tell me, hey, but I'm doing a fantastic job. I've got my results, my KPIs are on target. My team is performing well. But the promotion just doesn't seem to be happening. I have hit this glass ceiling or this invisible barrier, and I'm seeing others pass me by, but I don't understand why I'm not hitting that next level. And here's one of the biggest things that I found is that it has to do oftentimes with that thought or the belief of around like, hey, my work is going to speak for itself. As long as I do a great job, I'm getting the results, then my work is going to speak for itself, except it doesn't. And this is why hoping that your work is going to speak for itself isn't going to actually fast track your promotion. Because, I mean, think about it. How often have you heard that advice, right? Well, just if you do a great job, you work hard, you're going to be successful. Except I want to bet if you were to look around, you will see other people that have worked incredibly hard and still aren't achieving the success that they've wanted to have. And when we hear this, just let your work speak for itself, it's meant well by those people that have given it, but it really overlooks a very critical piece of importance when it comes to visibility and strategic self-promotion in today's competitive corporate environment, where when you have an entire sea of very talented professionals relying only on your work to get noticed, it's like trying to whisper a message in the middle of a rock concert. I don't know if you've ever tried it, but I can barely hear the person next to me speak if they're shouting at me, asking me a question at a rock concert, let alone if you're trying to whisper. So when you use this passive approach, and that is what it is really, if you are still of the mindset of like, hey, I'm going to put my head down, I'm going to work hard. Oh, I didn't get the promotion this year around. Well, you know what? I'm going to take on an extra project, and then they're going to see my worth. Well, that really doesn't work. Again, it's too passive. What really happens for those women that are rapidly climbing the corporate ladder, they don't just wait until they've completed all of their assigned tasks in a great way. They are really strategic and using a personalized approach when it comes to their career development. They're ensuring that their work is not just seen, but their role in the success of their work and the role of their success in their teams is very much clearly understood and valued. They don't wait for the opportunities, but they create them. So Here are some of those. Maybe there's a consequence that you've experienced or you might be experiencing right now, right? And I've kind of highlighted it already, but it's in the line of, hey, you're doing great results. I used to work. I worked with a sales professional, and they were having phenomenal quarters, phenomenal results, and still weren't being really recognized. So you might also have just been like, hey, well, if I'm going to share my success, oh, well, that feels like I'm bragging, or it just feels like I'm just trying to show off. That's not the case. Okay? So these are some of the things that might be happening. And if you're doing any of these, you might also be focusing again on making sure the task is done without actually advocating for your own or for your team's the success and the contribution that they made. And here's a really consequence that I really want you to hear me say and to understand. And one of that is that when you don't share and you don't publicly share all the things that you're doing and are being successful, one consequence is you could simply be not be getting enough resources for your teams and for your departments, for your unit in order to complete all the tasks that are needed and to meet the KPIs. You may also find yourself, and I've spoken to several different women that have had this happen. It's like they've been delivering phenomenal results, and yet when it comes time to that annual review, they're like, "Well, we don't know what you're doing," and actually get put on a development plan because they haven't promoted any of the work. And they're like, "Well, hold on a minute! Like all of this work that I got all these results here, and you got," and they're like, "Well, we didn't see it, we didn't know about it." And then you're actually being you're ugh, let me get my words out here on a Friday afternoon. You're actually getting penalized because people aren't seeing your work, aren't seeing the contribution you're making. So you're losing out on a salary raise. You are, like I said, you maybe put on a development plan, which means all of a sudden you have extra check-ins, you need to do extra work. And it's like, but hold on, you didn't recognize anything of what you already did. So it is going to impact it's also going to impact your promotability in the short term. So all of these things are on the line when it comes to how do you go from manager to director if you're just doing the hard work. If you're just working, if you've got your head down, working hard, this is not going to work. So here's where I want to share with you an element, or actually three elements that we work on within the Leadership Accelerator. And this is all part of the Leadership Edge method that my clients work through. And again, I still told you I'm going to share with you triple C today. And actually, I should say the 1C isn't even in the guide, so you're going to get an extra one here. But again, if you're interested in going into more depth and you want to find out more, then DM me guide, and I will send you the PDF of my guide that shares the 7 steps that you need to take in order to get promoted. So again, DM me guide, and I will get that over to you into your inbox. So let's look at what does really help, because when it comes to being proactive, when it comes to really getting that leadership success and getting that promotion, you also, again, we cannot just rely on hard work. It is a foundational piece. So if you come to work with me, and I actually haven't had any women that have had that result, but if you were to, for example, not be getting any results, then unfortunately, this guide and what I'm going to tell you today isn't going to work for you. This is going to work for the individuals, for the women that are already performing at a high level, that are taking action, that are high achievers. It's just now that we're going to amplify and shine a light on certain parts of what you are doing and share it with others. We're going to kind of put it center stage, right? Make it, promote it first. But let's get into the first step. Now, this first step is really a key component, and this is one of also another layer on top of that key foundation of achievement and having those concrete results. And this is a piece from what's in my program, which is the Leadership Compass. And the first one of these is going to be, we're going to talk about your values, specifically your core values. Remember, I told you we're going to do a triple C today. So the first C is for core values. Now, when it comes to your core values, oftentimes the mistake that I see a lot of women making is like, hey, you know what? I know what my core values are. And then when I asked you to list them, it's like, oh, hold on a minute. I didn't think you wanted me to list them. I don't know exactly what they are. I just kind of operate with certain guiding principles. Now, the reason that you really want to get these very explicit and up to the surface so that you see them, you can really relate to them, is because these are indeed those guiding principles that help you, but they're also going to act as a filter when it comes to time to making decisions, whether that is necessarily a decision within your team, but also the decision of do I apply for or do I accept that next role, yes or no? Does it align with my values? Because when it doesn't, that's when you're going to start experiencing friction where you might find your values don't align with your organization, with the organization, for example. If your definition of integrity and fairness does not line up with that of your organization and they do things where you're like, oh, I don't know, that feels a little bit icky for me, then you're going to struggle in that role. So again, the first step is defining your core values. So for example, I've worked with a number of different leaders, and one of them shared that they were looking for a specific next step role and moving into that director's role, except they just like, well, I don't want to continuously be stuck in operations. I want to be moving more strategic. But they also, when working through their core values, realize like there are some personal values and things in my personal life that are also important. Having time with my family, having a good work-life balance while still having a challenging career. These led them to making specific choices when it came to that next step. What it also allowed them to do is really, again, have that filter system for themselves to allow them to go, I've got two opportunities here that look really interesting. Oh, which one would be better? And then to be able to really use their core values for that, really enable them to make that decision much more effectively. So, what I want you to do when it comes to that first C for core values is to think about, well, what are your top 5 core values and how do they show up for you in your leadership, in your work, and in your life? So, that's the first step. Okay. I'm going to give you the triple C today, only 3. And I said, I'm going to share the third one isn't even in the guide. So I'm going to give you the third one. So technically I should go back and edit and make it 8 steps. We're going to stick with 7 steps. So if you're just catching on right now, if you are a woman in leadership and you're wanting to transition from that manager role, and you've been doing everything you possibly have could, you've been working really hard, but somehow you've hit this almost like this glass ceiling, right? That invisible barrier. I'm like, what is the secret? DM me guide, and I'm going to share with you my 7-step guide to getting yourself promoted. All right, let's dive into number 2. Number 2 is going to be about defining your course. Now, within my leadership accelerator, within the leadership and the leadership compass, I call this a vision. You need to craft your leadership vision. But for today's purpose of 3 C's, we're going to craft your leadership course. Okay, so when it comes to crafting that leadership course or your leadership vision, what's so important about this is that you need to know where you're going. The amount of times when I've asked, like, okay, so what position would you like? What's your dream next role? Like, oh, I don't know. I'd just like to move up. I'd like to have more challenging, but there isn't really a very clear vision. So imagine yourself. It's like trying to take a road trip, and you're like, okay, well, I know where I am right now, and I want to go somewhere that's sunny. Maybe I'd like to have something that's got like a beach, but you don't really know beyond that, right? Those are fairly generic things. Well, let's just say you're based in Amsterdam, because I'm based in the Netherlands. And if I were to say that, it's like, okay, well, I could end up just on the Dutch coast on the beach and the sun is shining. And we get there going like, well, hold on a minute. That's not what I meant. I actually wanted it to be more, like even more warm, where I could really just like sit on the beach and have cocktails. Like, oh, okay. So what happens if you were to go further south? Well, then you could end up either in Italy or in Spain on the beach. Is that it or is that not it? Right. So what happens is you end up just kind of following whatever comes to mind or whatever opportunity comes up, but it doesn't necessarily work for you. Might not align with your values that you've got in your first step, but it also might just be disappointing. It's like, well, hold on a minute. I didn't end up where I wanted to be. So for you at this moment, this also becomes really important because this vision, this leadership vision or leadership course for today, right? The course in terms of where you're going is also important when it comes to thinking about, I'm going to want to have conversations with people. How do I do that? And how can I share where I want to go? I don't know what it is for myself. Not only that, but this leadership vision isn't just important for you when it comes to what is the next step or what does your career look like, but also adding value within your current role. So if you're one of a lot of women that I work with, it's not that they want to switch to another organization. Yes, they want to grow in their role, but this leadership vision is really important also for your team. Craft a leadership vision. You don't need to wait for your senior leaders or for the board to share a vision. You can craft your own. And of course, it should tie into the company and the organization's strategy and vision as well. But by crafting your own vision, you start to elevate your own role and how you can start be perceived, because you can talk about your vision to your team. Here's the vision I have for my department. Here's the vision I have for my team. And they can also start to use that as a guiding North Star in terms of the direction that they need to go. So I want you to really consider, hey, what are important aspects and what does my vision look like? And think of it as, what does it look like in a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, so that you can start to really not just kind of have like, ooh, maybe I'm going to end up on the beach here in the Netherlands, or I'm going to end up on the beach in Spain, or maybe I'll end up in the beach in Australia, right? Because you could have all kinds of different areas, places you could go. The same holds true for your career. But in order for you to get to where you want to be, both for yourself in your career, but also for your team in your organization, you need to create that North Star. You need to create that vision. Where am I going to be going? Now let's get into the last step. Step number 3. This is what I'm going to share with you today. Again, it's going to be the triple C today. And we're going to talk about communication, the third C. Now this C is not explicit in my guide. But again, if this is something that you want, I will just repeat it here again for you. If you're looking from how do I transition from being a director from being a manager into being a director or senior level leader or executive, this guide is for you. It's going to, I have outlined 7 different steps, all nicely in order, so you can follow the action plan. And it's going to allow you to take steps today, put it into action today, so that you can start seeing opportunities open up and created for you. Now, the third step, communication. Now, this comes down to, are you talking about yourself? Are you, there goes my calendar reminder. Are you also talking about your achievements, your results, the experience that you bring, your insight? Are you sharing your ideas? Because so often what I see, unfortunately, is that a lot of women stay really quiet in this moment in time. And you have brilliant ideas, you have great achievements, you have so much experience to bring to the table, and yet it's like we shrink down. And all of that, being, that high performance, that high achiever that you are, and I know this because I've been there, and in some ways I still am there in that high achieving, high performing part, or not even some ways, and in a lot of ways I am. But it is just that feeling of like, oh my goodness, like, is that idea going to be good enough? will that person really see me as the expertise, or will they now think I'm bragging, or they're going to shoot down my idea? And oftentimes, unfortunately, especially for women, we see the research has shown, I've had that experience as well as many of my clients, is that when it comes to women sharing ideas, they get shot down more often than they do when they come from a male colleague. Now, that being said, this should not mean that you back off from sharing your ideas, but there are ways that you can share it that are going to work better than others, right? So if you find yourself, for example, I don't want to come across as being braggy when it comes to an achievement or comes to an idea, think about packaging it in a way that is just more that you can work it into a conversation. I challenge you to find a way to work it into a conversation. So one of my favorite ways to do this, and I've used this in the past as well, is, for example, if I have an idea, I tie it to a recent achievement. So what I do with that is, for example, maybe you've got a new product idea that's coming out, right? You might be planning Q3 already. I know we're only into Q2, but you might be planning for Q3 sales. And you have an idea, I want to position a product, just slightly different into the market. So what you can do, and again, you're going to attach current achievement with your idea. So this is kind of like a 1-2 punch, because not only are you sharing an idea, but you're also sharing your achievement and your expertise at the same time. So what you could do, and could be in casual conversation, or maybe you just seek out either a colleague or a leader to share this. It's like, hey, you know what? This is the result. My team and I have created this result over the past month. We have sold 100,000 of product X, Y, and Z, and we're seeing some really great results, and we're really seeing some great feedback. So there's your punch one, right? Here you're positioning an achievement of yourself and your team. The second part comes on, and here's an idea I really want to run by you, or I'd like to brainstorm with you about positioning product Y for Q3, because this is what we're seeing as a result. Are you open to brainstorming about that? Now, I know it may sound very easy and simple and straightforward. So many don't do this. We either just kind of like blur it out, like, oh, I've got this idea, and then hope somebody else picks it up and runs with it. Or we just avoid it altogether. Like, oh, you know what? If I see it, everyone else must be able to see it. This is something that normal people, the average person, should be able to see. But what you're forgetting is you have a very unique mix of experience, of knowledge, and wisdom. So in this third one, I really encourage you to start communicating your achievements, your successes, your ideas. And I just gave you, just rewind a little bit in this, if you watch the replay, to see, you could do it in like a 2-step of like, hey, the first punch is going to be about your idea, or not your idea, but your achievement. And the second one is going to be all about sharing your idea, and even opening the door up to having a conversation of like, hey, can we talk about this? Can we spar about this idea? Now, I've given you 3 steps, right? I've talked about the steps 1, which is core values. Number 2, that's going to be your leadership course, aka vision. And the third C is all about communication. There's your triple C for today. I'm going to remind you there are more steps to move from being a manager to being a director. Now, the easiest way for you today to learn more about those steps and discover those steps is to DM me guide. And I will send you my 7-step guide. You will receive it today. It's a PDF. You can walk your way through that guide as to how do you move from going from manager to director. This also can work for you if you're in the midst of a career transition. So a lot of women that I've been speaking to in the last couple of weeks are like, oh, I'm looking for a new role. I don't know where I want to go. Hey, grab this guide too, because even though we're talking about going from manager to director, it doesn't mean you can't make this step in with another organization. Okay. Don't believe, I know there's a lot of naysayers out there that say you need to have moved up and you can only move horizontally when it comes to a new organization. I want to challenge that conventional wisdom because I know I have done it and I've helped my clients do it as well, having taken them from a manager's level role in their current organization and helping them and supporting them in creating the opportunity to step into a senior leadership position in a new organization. So if you are finding yourself in transition, then that guide is really great for you as well. Gives you 7 concrete steps to walk through that you can go through today. The other thing I want to offer you, if you want to go even more in depth with me, then DM me Accelerator because I cover all of this plus so much more in my Leadership Accelerator program. And I'm looking at the time because my Leadership Accelerator, my call is going to start in 3 minutes. So that is just so that you know, it is a fantastic group program. There are they're all amazing women leaders that are in this program that are really working on the strategies to be more successful as leaders, to be breaking through the glass ceiling, to be heard, to get to be that sought after strategic leader within their organization or even beyond their organization. So if that is something that you're interested in, then I want you to DM me Accelerator. Now, any questions, please share them in the comments below, or again, DM me those as well. My DMs can get really busy during the week. So if it takes me a minute to respond, don't worry, I have seen it. I will get back to you. I just want to recap today where we're at, okay? Because you now have a choice. I've already given you the first 3 steps. You have a choice now. What is next? When it comes to going from being a manager to that director, there are 3 things that you need to do, right? One is to work out what are your core values. Actually, there's more than 3 things, but the first 3 things are to work out your core values. So those are the principles that guide you. They're also going to help you filter on your decisions. Number 2 is to create that vision, that leadership course, right? So if we're going to stick in the 3 C's, the leadership course, what is important? What's your true north? Where are you headed? And to be able to communicate that effectively and succinctly for everyone else. And lastly, communicate about your own achievements, your ideas, and don't hesitate to self-promote because, like I shared at the very beginning, one of the biggest mistakes that happen is that for women leaders, we tend to believe that if I work hard enough, if I take on enough projects, if I deliver enough results, that will be enough for my promotion. And I have shared at the very top of this video why that isn't. That is actually one of the worst and slowest ways to get promoted. So if you're ready to not only work hard, that's still a component of it, right? You still need achievement. But if you're ready to just try something different because you've hit up against that ceiling for a long enough time now, then let's have a conversation. And again, DM me guide to get my 7-step guide to promoting yourself from manager to director. All right. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you.